Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everybody, good morning. My name is Nick Reed. A couple days away until Thanksgiving. We will have special Thanksgiving programming. We'll have Best of on Friday. It's a bit of a programming note for you there. We are streaming live, KSGF.com. And don't forget, as you're thinking about your travels, whether it is for this Thanksgiving or perhaps for upcoming Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or whatever it might be that you celebrate around this time of the year, A1 Custom Car Care, make sure that your vehicle is ready for the road, and we're getting those temperatures below freezing at night. You may feel it's just struggling a little bit to turn over. You want to not find yourself without a battery working in morning time. That's because it's been cold and it's still dark outside and it won't start, and then you got to call someone to give you a ride or to jumpstart you, and that's never fun. No one wants to do that. Coming up Saturday, we've got fuel treatment. Going to be talking about that. Santa's
That's
Angels.
right. Yes,
Because
Santa's Angels.
A1 Custom Car Care, one of our Santa Angels partners, they have been for ever.
That's correct.
And
the Republic location this year.
Yes, that's right, on Highway 60, the Republic location. And how stolen vehicles end up halfway across the world.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There you go. That's
and
what
Dustin, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. right here. Springfield's Talk 1041. Jack Smith asking that the judge just wipe these cases away. Donald Trump, the accusations that he was questioning the outcome of the election. This was stirring insurrections, the whole January 6th stuff, one of the many lawfare suits against him that we see falling to the wayside. And, of course, the big question is why. And most people recognize why, and that is they failed. The whole point, of course, was to prevent him from becoming president of the United States. Again, and the people were like, no, don't think so. We have other plans. Jack Smith cited the fact that constitutionally, he just really didn't have any choice because you can't indict a sitting president, to which I say, since when does that matter to you guys? I mean, there's crud tons of things that Democrats have thrown at Trump that you aren't supposed to do. I love how suddenly they're like, well, we got to follow the law here. Oh, do you now? Okay. This has never been a restraint in modern history for the Democrat Party. In fact, this is an administration that has literally bragged about defying the Supreme Court's opinions regarding the constitutionality of certain things, whether it was, back to the Obama administration, the DREAM Act, or if you are talking about the more recent history of Joe Biden and forcing Americans who didn't take out student loans to pay for the student loans, and people who did voluntarily take out the student loans. And that was one where he did, out on the campaign trail. He showed them. Supreme Court told me I couldn't do it, didn't have the authority to do it, but I did it anyway. So now we're supposed to believe that Jack Smith and the Democrats have this adherence to the Constitution that they have great respect for, and that's why they aren't moving forward. Now, it's been noted that the door has been potentially left open to go after him after he leaves office, though that is still up in the air as to whether that could or would happen. The kicking of sentencing hearing in the Alvin Bragg case, you've got a number of these scenarios popping up in which now Democrats are forcing the American people to be faced with the question, can they go after him once he leaves office? Now, my gut tells me that will not happen. But maybe it will. On one hand, they are a vengeful people, those who run the Democrat Party and utilize their position of judges and attorneys to go after political opposition. They're very vengeful. And they would see it not simply as making Donald Trump pay, but sending a message to anyone in the future who dared buck the system, who dared come in and defy the establishment in the name of the American people. So it wouldn't be as much of punishing Donald Trump, but just sending a warning. This is what will happen to anyone else who ever thinks about doing this. I don't, however, know whether or not there's this battle that is bubbling below the surface within the Democrat Party as to whether or not to abandon the lawfare, abandon the left-wing tyrannical tactics, versus those in the Democrat Party who say, no, the problem is we didn't do enough of it. And you hear this within some of the commentary, and I'll play some of the audio coming up, in which Democrats are saying, well, Merrick Garland failed here because he didn't imprison Trump. He should have timed this out better so that we could have put Trump in prison. But they're openly, in their disappointment and hindsight evaluation, acknowledging what even some banana republic leaders won't say out loud, and that is the open acknowledgement that this was about imprisoning political opposition for the sake of imprisoning political opposition. I mean, even Putin pretends as if that's not what he's doing when he's doing it. Not the Democrats. At least some of them that are openly angry because we didn't get him in time. We didn't get him in time. We didn't time this out correctly so that he would be prevented from making it to the White House, so that the American people would not have the ability to make that decision. The big donors paid for Kamala Harris to get the nomination. We should have been able to just get her into the White House by imprisoning Donald Trump. Didn't work. I've got some brilliant audio of former Democrat congressman on, I believe it was CNN, worrying that people might misunderstand this dropping of these different cases as Trump being correct that all of this was without merit and it was only done for political purposes. Oh, yes, people might erroneously think that. Whether in a moment, right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 52. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 37. For your Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 54. And on Thanksgiving, sunny and breezy with a high near 42.
I like this text. Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. Democrats are now afraid they're about to get a old smackdown. I like the verbiage there. Good old-fashioned smackdown. Oh, they got one. It was on Election Day. It's just some of them didn't get it, didn't quite grasp it. Traffic. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Don't forget, if you have any needs for a new home, just happen to need one. Like, you know what? I think we do need a new home. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. This is the time of year, I think, I know she is busy because what happens is a lot of people, I guess this is for tax purposes maybe, people want to get into those new homes before the end of the year, get all that paperwork done and signed, make it official. But I think also a lot of times what happens is around the holidays, you just start looking at the size of your home and you think about, oh, I remember when we used to have all the kids and the grandkids over, and, now we have Christmas and Thanksgiving over at so-and-so's house instead, and so we don't need all this room. Or it could be the other way around. Your kids are out, now they're grandkids, and things are getting crowded, and that's a big part of your life. You love having family over, and so even though it's just the two of you living in the house, you want to have a home that is welcoming and accommodating for all of the kids and the grandkids. And so that means finding something new. Whatever it is, Emily Johnson, cannot recommend her enough. She's absolutely incredible. And we're just so fortunate to be able to introduce her to you, those who haven't utilized her, who don't know her yet. Those who do, of course, already know. But any home buying and selling needs, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I love this audio. This is a conversation on, I think this is CNN, regarding the decision to drop these cases against Donald Trump with Jack Smith.
There are also obvious political ramifications for what happened today with these voluntary dismissals of these cases. First of all, it cements Merrick Garland's legacy as being the most ineffective Attorney General of the United States in modern history, because he waited so long to open these investigations such that we find ourselves at this point. But also, Donald Trump, unfortunately, is speaking to folks who are not hearing the truth about these investigations. And so this is going to strengthen his argument, unfortunately, in their minds, that these cases were the result of politics rather than the merits. And I do believe he would have been convicted in both of these matters the way he was convicted earlier this year in a separate matter. But this is a real problem. It strengthens his hand when he says he wants to purge the Department of Justice of the deep state, for example, which is something we know is a falsehood. But to people seeing this voluntary dismissal, many Americans are going to think, oh, so I guess there was no basis for these cases in the first place.
Okay. So that's some former Democrat congressman on one of the cable media outlets. And so the concern here is that you may misunderstand that this was just about getting Trump. This has nothing to do with politics whatsoever, but you may misunderstand that, because those of you who don't know what's really going on here might see the fact that when Trump won and these cases are being dropped left and right, they're falling apart, that the whole reason was to prevent Trump from being elected president of the United States by the American people. And now that failed, well, what's the point? You might erroneously think that. The deep state, by the way, doesn't exist. So the attempt to overthrow the presidency during the Trump administration, the falsification of evidence put before the FISA court by the FBI, that never happened. James Comey leaking information so that the New York Times could write stories, that never happened. Even though he admitted it, but that his admission, that never occurred. All of the text messages back and forth between Peter Strzok and his girlfriend about doing what they can to make sure Hillary Clinton didn't get in trouble, doing what they could in order to make sure they could nail Donald Trump, that never happened. All part of your imagination. The 51 former and current intelligence agents that penned a letter falsely claiming that the Hunter laptop story was fake, it was Russian disinformation. None of that happened. No. None of that happened whatsoever. The coordination of former defense officials prior to January 6th, all coming together, writing a letter condemning Donald Trump's decision to allow the usage of National Guard in order to protect the Capitol should it be needed. None of that ever happened. No. Chuck Schumer on MSNBC with Rachel Maddow in the opening days of the Trump administration, openly on television saying Donald Trump had better watch it when dealing with these agencies because they will get you. They have ways of getting you. Oh, no, none of that happened. None of this stuff happened. Oh, no, none whatsoever. It's all in your imagination. Many of these Democrats, and that is an example there of that former Democrat congressman who was complaining that now Merrick Garland is the most ineffective attorney general ever because he did not time it correctly to nail Trump before the election. How much more? The guy makes that statement followed up with, people might erroneously believe that this is political. That right after he's complaining that Merrick Garland didn't time this properly to prevent Trump from becoming president. Part of the humor in this is it's in retrospect. The reason that these cases were held off as long as they were was because they thought that that was the timing that would work to their advantage. They just miscalculated. In reality, if politics wasn't attached to this, if there really truly was evidence in any of these instances that Trump had done something wrong, then this stuff would have begun. It would have begun as soon as he was out of office, but they waited. Waited a couple of years until the campaign was underway. The irony here is that in their minds anyhow, if Merrick Garland and, well, if Jack Smith and if Alvin Bragg, if all of, and Fannie Willis, if all of these different Democrats involved in the lawfare had not attempted to time this out for political purposes, then they may have been able to nail him. They're holding off by a couple of years in order to have all of this going on during the campaign. Because, and it wasn't simply, convict the guy, but drain him of his money, keep him in court, keep him off the campaign trail. All of the news during the campaign cycle needs to be about him going to court, needs to be about mugshots, needs to be about him sitting there in court. And that needs to dominate the news cycles because they recognize that he's very good out there on the campaign trail. So that and again, draining of the resources, it was the whole kit and caboodle that was timed during the campaign season in the effort to prevent him from getting elected president of the United States. Now, what is happening here, and I don't agree with their assessment, but what they're believing is that had they not waited so long, then they would have been able to nail Trump. So the irony here is, at least the way that their minds are working, what they believe would be the reality or the outcome, is that by trying to use these cases to prevent Trump from being elected president of the United States, by trying to time it out that way, they actually screwed themselves because it took longer than they thought it was going to take. And if they had not done it for the reasons of trying to prevent Trump from becoming president of the United States, then they may have actually timed it out to where he would have been dealing with these convictions. Maybe he would have even been in prison. Now, again, I don't believe that would have been the outcome, but that's what some of them are telling themselves would have happened if this had been coordinated better. It should be noted that Merrick Garland has always been like, hey, this doesn't have anything to do with us. Who are these Democrats blaming for the timing of this? Merrick Garland. Now, why are they blaming Merrick Garland if the White House had nothing whatsoever to do with any of this? Remember, that was the big thing. That's a conspiracy theory. Anytime you had Trump or a Trump surrogate note that this was coming out of the White House. They would trip over themselves. There's no evidence of that. That's not true. Merrick Garland has nothing to do with this whatsoever. The Biden administration, this is all separate from the White House. This is Jack Smith. This is Fannie Willis. This is Alvin Bragg. This is nothing to do with the White House. Yet now that they feel that the timing of this was screwed up, who are they blaming? The Democrats. Who are the Democrats blaming? You heard right there, Merrick Garland, the most ineffective attorney general because he screwed up the timing of this. They're exposing. See, I mean, we knew this. But there is something satisfying about watching in their defeat of lawfare, not just the election, acknowledging that we were right all along. Sometimes the truth does prevail. Before we get to traffic, holiday helpers this year, we've evolved what has been our annual Nick's Favorite Things, where it's a focus solely on different gift ideas from area local businesses. And we're expanding it to encompass just anything and everything that can be helpful during the holidays for you, right? And this will be not this Friday, but the following Friday, we will every hour hit a different location. We'll come to you on air from those locations, and then we will also do the Facebook Lives. We've, got Corwin Automotive is going to be providing the transportation, and Foreman Mechanical once again this year is sponsoring. I say once again, it's been Nick's Favorite Things, but we're expanding it to area holiday helpers, so they are sponsoring that. Aviary Cafe, Rapid Ship Republic, Big Shots Golf. We've got Ming Auto Beauty Center among some of those that are participating. Hy-Vee also, and so we've got a different array of offerings, if you will, in terms of ways that the holidays. There's just a lot going on, and I got to do this, got to take care of that. In addition to gifts that you are trying to get for people, there's other things that you got to take care of generally during the holidays. So we've expanded it for that, and that will be coming up not this Friday, but it'll be the first Friday in December, which will be a week from this Friday. And then, of course, at the same time, we have information up Santa's Angels, and this is where we work in order to get these kids from KVC, Missouri. It's a foster facility, connected up with you so that they can get gifts for Christmas. And our area locations, we do have the where we've got the trees. You can go and adopt the kids. We ask that you do that sooner than later. They are up now. Anchor Tactical Supply, A1 Custom Car Care, Crown Power and Equipment, Greene County Freight and Food Sales, and Pinnager Chevrolet in Republic. And the A1 Custom Car Care is the Republic location as well. I should note that. So that info again at ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 52. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 37. For your Wednesday, mostly cloudy skies with a high near 54. And on Thanksgiving, sunny and breezy with a high near 42.
Do you think Biden's going to pardon Hunter before the end of his term?
Who knows?
What I think is funny is that it's assumed that he is, even amongst his supporters, that he was just lying about when he's like, I absolutely will not do that. And no one, I haven't heard any time this discussion has come up. It's not a main focus of discussion, but it's something that's out there.
Right.
And if it's brought up, I've never once heard a Democrat say, well, no, he said he wouldn't do that. It's like they know he was lying, or I mean, it's like he's a liar. He's a lying liar with his lying lips
He's
and
a
lying
lion
face.
face.
He's a lying dog faced pony soldier, is
That's
what he
it right
is.
there.
Yeah, that's what he is. I suspect if he does it, it'll be between like Christmas and New Year's Eve, or at the very, very, very last minute. The big news is he and Jill are going to be at the inauguration, which sounds dangerous because I imagine he'll be executed or something. I mean, Donald Trump he's going to make a point, right? It just
It's Hitler.
he is Hitler. Oh, Hitler. Just wonder how he'll carry that out. But I guess we will find out. There was an event at the National Press Club, and there was a CEO of Axios there, Jim Vandehei, and he got up, and I wanted to play for you a portion of what he said while he was speaking to other journalists. And now this is about, he's responding to the deteriorating credibility of journalism and the fact that increasingly Americans, for information about what's going on in the world, are going to podcasters, and you have people like Elon Musk who have recognized this and are talking about the changing ways of things. He's talked about, and some of this, I don't know how much of it is trolling, but it's enjoyable when he throws out there that maybe he'll buy MSNBC and give like Joe Rogan a show and stuff like that. I mean, what did you see? You probably didn't. Rachel Maddow was on air when evidently she first saw the posting in which Elon Musk sort of like, maybe I should buy it. She started to cry on air. I am not kidding you. She got choked up. It took her like 30 seconds from the moment, I wish I had the audio, from the moment that she first saw it to sitting there. And I didn't know what I was watching at first. I thought, oh, is this whenever the race got called for Trump or something? And then she kept starting to talk, and then she had to compose herself. And then it was reading his, I mean, you would have thought, I don't think if it was a report that Biden had been assassinated as president, I don't think she would have been as choked up as she was with this idea that Elon Musk would potentially buy MSNBC. The woman works 1 day a week over there, and she gets paid dumb money for it. These people just crack me up. So the deteriorating credibility within the American population of journalism. And so here is at this press event, Jim Vanderhyde, the CEO of Axios, talking to other journalists about this.
Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day, or X today, saying like, we are the media, you are the media. My message to Elon Musk is, bullshit. You're not the media. You having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter any more than me looking at your head and seeing that you have a brain and telling you have an awesome set of tools makes me a damn neurosurgeon, right? Like what we do, what journalists do, what you did in Mississippi, what Al Jazeera does in the Middle East. You don't proclaim yourself to be a reporter. Like that's nonsense. Like being a reporter's hard, really hard.
Now, there's two main takeaways. One is not driving the main point home, but I do find it amusing that the very people who push this idea that if you're a man and you just want to declare that you're a woman, that makes you one, but here he is going on and on about, you're not a journalist just because you say you are. Just because you have a lot of followers and you're giving your opinion, you're not a journalist. You can't just say you're a journalist and be a journalist. Having a blue check mark next to your name, all these things, that being a journalist is much more than that. You can't just declare yourself a journalist. These are the same people who say that you can declare yourself a woman and be one. Now, to his point about you're not a journalist, you're not media. When he's talking about media, he's talking about journalism. Okay, so what? This isn't about who is a journalist and who isn't a journalist. That's not the conversation or the evolution of things in the country right now. It's whether or not journalism is considered a respectable venue or the journalist outlets, media outlets, a reliable and respectable venue in which people can get information. And the answer increasingly is no. These labels are so important to people. You have this perspective in which he's more concerned, and I think this is the culture in media, more concerned with somebody who isn't an official journalist with a degree in journalism, who works in an establishment media outlet, somebody claiming that they're the actual journalist, than they are concerned about why it is people don't trust them any longer. Then, they don't have any concern about why people are going to other platforms in order to get information. I don't think when it comes to what has become journalism in this country, frankly, people like Elon Musk really want to be that. They don't want to be in that cesspool of propaganda and disinformation. When you have this assertion by somebody like Elon Musk that we're the media, you're the media, what he's not, they're talking about, two different things here. When you have a liberal journalist talking about it, it's the label, it's the official certificate, it's the special badge to get into the cool kids club. That's what journalism. It's a status symbol. What Elon Musk is talking about when he says we are the media, or AKA journalists, he's not talking about the status symbol of it. He's not talking about the club of journalism with the secret handshake. He's talking about a place that people increasingly are going that they trust for information. That isn't information put out with the purpose of telling you what to believe or pushing one political viewpoint over another. These folks, they just don't get it, and they're becoming a dying breed. I believe what is going to happen, as long as we continue on the course that we are, and I don't really see any reason why this would change, because of the perspective of people like this, and because of the indoctrination of university campuses into left-wing politics, that journalism, this isn't going to change. They talk about, you get the Washington Post, and, we're going to quit putting out presidential endorsements so that we seem more fair and honest. We seem more unbiased. Joe Scarborough, Mika, we're going to go talk to Donald Trump. That way we seem as if we're going to start providing you more honest, straightforward news. But you are who you are. I don't believe that we are, people generally want true and honest information. They want to know the truth. And there is this mistaken belief that the only way we can get that, the only place people will ever have to get that, is establishment media. And the only way that as a nation we're ever going to have any sort of venue in which we can learn about what's going on in the world, learn about what's going on in our local communities, is if the news gets itself figured out, right? But that is a miscalculation, because there are lots of places. There's just not places that we're used to. We've all grown up, and this is how we are as human beings. You're used to what you're used to. It's why people panic over you can't get rid of the Department of Education. My God, people will never learn. That department didn't even exist until 1980. But because we're used to it, We don't know a world without it. And so the unknown is this mysterious, frightening place. And the idea that we can successfully and more accurately learn about what's going on in the world, learn about what's going on in our communities, learn about what's going on in our nation. In other words, what we traditionally would call news, get news. The idea that the only places that we can ever get that, the only venue is newspapers and TV and radio news reports, that's erroneous thinking. Because what is news? News is it's people communicating information. That's what it is. It is a form of communication in which people tune in or open their eyes and look at, or whatever format it's in, and receive information regarding things that they have an interest in. Well, that's not something that is only possible on network television and cable news television and in newspapers. The failure to recognize that the competition that existed once upon a time for providing news is so vast what it was. They still, you get these networks and Axios as a news outlet, and they see the only competition for providing news as other people in their club. So for NBC News, it's ABC and CBS. For cable news, it's, Fox. It's, in addition to Fox, you've got MSNBC and CNBC and CNN, newspapers, the New York Times, the Washington Post. They've closed themselves off to that club, so they think that's the only competition. But it isn't anymore. Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and not Elon Musk so much, but use Joe Rogan as an example. These people who are having newsmakers on, they're having these honest conversations, and by honest, I mean not driven with a political agenda. And what people are finding is they are getting more useful information out of that than they are in which somebody from 60 Minutes is just trying to gotcha to Donald Trump. It's about the product. It's about the end product. And what's happening here is the competition is killing traditional news because traditional news is not doing what it was that it initially did for the American people. Excuse me. And instead you have the podcasters and the Joe Rogans of the world stepping in and doing what journalists used to do. So you can have the CEO of Axios get up and, you don't understand what it means. You're not a journalist just because you have a blue check next to your name in some sort of podcast. That doesn't mean you're a journalist. Okay, fine, whatever. Call me what you want. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to providing information, less and less people trust you. And you are making yourself irrelevant. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right, Sarah found the audio.
I was not disappointed.
Okay, good. I didn't know if I oversold it.
No, it's pretty good.
Now, the visuals are great as well, but you'll get a sense from the audio. This is when Rachel Maddow, live on her show, and then she gets handed I guess it was some sort of posting maybe Elon Musk made. Or
It was a meme.
Oh, is it me? Oh, okay. In which he mentioned maybe buying MSNBC, which of course is where Rachel Maddow works. Now you're going to hear the audio, and then there's going to be a dead space. That dead space is because they turn her microphone off so she can try and compose herself.
At least 3. Put up the graphic of this. I think I'm going to have to hand this off. Yeah. Sorry. That does it for us tonight.
Good Lord, what is wrong with these people? I think that there's an argument to be made, a legitimate argument, that if you are that... listen, I'm not opposed to people getting emotional. I'm not one of these people that think, well, real men don't cry, or that, well, if a woman cries, it shows what... I'm a believer in God. I think just like laughter, crying is an emotion that God gave us to help us cope with certain things. But these people on the left cry about the most absurd things. And I'm sorry, if you can't keep it together because you read a meme about the prospect of Elon Musk owning MSNBC, then I don't think you have the ability to report news straightforward without being misdirected based off your emotions. I mean, if you cannot keep it together, we're not talking about reporting live on some sort of event in which, an entire city was wiped off the planet with a nuclear weapon. You could see a scenario like that, or, the Hindenburg coming down and oh my God, these rare instances. But these nut jobs, how can you trust anyone that is so emotionally erratic to have the ability to, in an unbiased and straightforward, logical manner, provide you with information? You just simply can't. Yeah, perhaps for the holidays, you're going to make a quick trek up to Kansas City. Leave maybe just half an hour early, so that way you can, as you're going through Clinton, Missouri, stop by Wilder RV, check out their RVs. If anything, I'm not saying that you're going to buy one and take it off the lot right then and there as you're headed to Kansas City for maybe some holiday shopping. But you get a good feel of the place. You get to know the people there. So you establish that relationship, and you may find some end-of-the-year deal. Maybe on the way back, you're like, you know what, we're going to stop by here. We didn't realize how affordable this is, especially after a night's stay at a Kansas City hotel. Wilder RV, whether it's an end-of-the-year deal or getting your vehicle ready to be put up for the winter, your RV, that is. Wilder RV, you can find all their information at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Springfield's Talk. This is it, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nick Reed. We are on YouTube Live. You can watch the show there. That is sponsored by Springfield Wraps, the good folks that designed and wrapped the KSGF studio. You can see it there. Someone had texted in that we were playing this Rachel Maddow audio of her breaking down and crying over the prospect of Elon Musk buying MSNBC. And someone said, oh, no, that's actually AI. So I researched it. It's not AI, but it is actually a clip from something else. So here, and you mentioned, I heard you, Sarah, you mentioned meme. So here's what this was, and it really was not meant to mislead anyone. That is evidently a clip from back in 2018 when there was some news report about Trump putting kids in cages, and she pretended to be so upset she cried. Somebody, just to be funny, posted it as Rachel Maddow learns that Elon Musk may buy MSNBC. He didn't intend, evidently, for anybody to... It was just a meme that he was creating, and then because the left is so hysterical and hate Elon Musk so much, it obviously picked up and people... just seemed like the sort of thing that would be done. It's still really funny.
It is really
But
funny.
I think it's funny that it was... So, yeah, it wasn't, from what I understand the reading of it, wasn't AI. That was an actual thing that occurred. Someone just like Rachel Maddow finding out that Elon Musk may buy MSNBC. I wonder why she hasn't broken down like that with the 300 and some thousand kids that have been lost into sex trafficking in this country. That's sort of interesting. I haven't seen her break down over that. Or the revelations, even acknowledged by the Biden administration, that they were funneling kids to a strip club that were then being farmed out to sex traffickers. And when asked about it during testimony, like, well, we do what we can. We do the best that we can. What are you going to do? Few kids sold into sex slavery. So what? At least we're not putting them in cages. Notice that none of the weeping is occurring. I don't see Ocasio or Cortez standing outside that strip club crying for those kids. Because, as you know, like everything else in the world, a victim is only useful to them if that victim can be used in order to harm the political opposition. If the victim is the reflection of their own policies, or if that victim might be damaging to their own political causes, then that victim becomes irrelevant. And that's why you can have hundreds of thousands of children disappear in this country through the sex trafficking pipeline, and they all shrug their shoulders. Well, kids get sold into sex slavery all the time anyway, so it's not like that big of a deal. The true compassion of the left. An illegal alien with a long criminal history accused of raping a woman on a jogging trail in the town of Herndon, Virginia, just 4 days after he was released by Fairfax County Jail. Now, this story, the raping of this woman by the illegal, this has been news for a bit, but there's new information. And part of that new information is that, oh, yeah, he was released 4 days earlier. The reason that he was released, Sanctuary City. There was a woman, this is one of many. Almost daily these stories pop up. That woman was raped because of a Sanctuary City. There was a request by ICE for a detainer on this individual, which means instead of being released into the community, you hold that individual until ICE comes and grabs the individual and holds them until whatever deportation or whatever proceedings occur. Sanctuary cities say, we will not do that. We will instead release them into the public. 4 days later, he raped a woman. This is this isn't sort of a theoretical. This isn't we don't know what would have happened if this or that. We know exactly what would have happened. And we know exactly what did happen. At the time of the rape, Romero had only been out of Fairfax County Jail for a total of 4 days, having been locked up for an indecent exposure and sentenced to 50 days. In that case, Romero approached a Jennifer Pugh on the trail, attempted to grab her dog. Pugh said Romero started to try to come at her, speaking only in Spanish, before exposing himself to her. After serving 25 days for that incident, Romero was released back. I love that. They didn't even make him serve the full time. Have you ever heard of escalating behavior? When somebody, whether they're in this country illegally or not, attacks a woman and exposes himself, he carries out some sort of sexual act. They don't stop. People like that don't go, oops, I went to jail for 25 days. I better not do that any longer. They escalate. After serving only 25 days for the incident, he was released back into the community as opposed to being turned over to immigration and custom enforcement agents for deportation. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin noted that the state is not a sanctuary jurisdiction and called on Fairfax County officials to stop protecting illegal aliens. He said, I'm heartsick for the victim, outraged for local Fairfax County officials recklessly releasing violent illegal immigrants who should have been prosecuted and deported. This is a dereliction of their most basic duty to keep people safe. Prioritizing violent illegal immigrants over the safety of Fairfax residents is unacceptable. Well, apparently to the people in Fairfax, it is acceptable because ultimately they are the ones who vote to put people in charge who give sanctuary to violent rapists and murderers. I mean, I hate to say it, but this is what they choose. Before the indecent exposure conviction, Romero had a run-in with Herndon police involving sexual abuse of a child, according to the Washington Post. The Herndon Police Department's first documented interest in him came in 2018, reports released in response to an open records request. So just by that alone, he's been in this country illegally. We've known it because he's committed crimes, including that against a child, for at least 6 years. The agency received a report that year saying he had fondled a 14-year-old. When a Fairfax County sex crimes detective investigated, the officer was told that Neverett Romero had exposed himself to a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old a year before, according to the report. A parent of those children said the incident went unreported because the family didn't want any problems. Ultimately, police wrote their attempts to speak with the people involved were met with resistance. They closed the investigation, and Neverett Romero faced no charges and, of course, was protected from deportation. In June of 2022, Romero choked a Herndon Police Department officer who was responding to a report of, guess what, groping. He was initially charged with felony assault on a law enforcement officer, but the charges were lowered to misdemeanor simple assault. Romero has been homeless, according to police, suffers from mental illness, substance abuse issues. He worked in construction in Fairfax County, has lived in the area for 11 years. In one instance, Herndon police found Romero face down in a park, and he asked to be deported from the United States so that he could go home. Romero is, so even when he was asked to be deported. I mean, I think what some Americans are waking up to is the reality that there is no point too far for some of these people on the left. There is this instinctual, this human instinct, in which compassionate human beings think to themselves, there's got to be something that occurs that will make the left go, okay, all right, we give, uncle. But almost daily they prove that there is nothing that can compel them to start enforcing the law and to stop protecting child rapists and women murderers. Coming up, New York City won't honor a detainer on a legal migrant accused of robbing and masturbating in front of a prosecutor's. So it's just, what more has to happen? And I guess there, again, to the point, there's nothing. It doesn't matter what they do. they still, in these Democrat-run cities, will refuse to stop protecting these people. Weather in just a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 52. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 37. For your Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 54. And on Thanksgiving, sunny and breezy with a high near 42.
The Democrats have turned jogging trails in this country into just this go-to place for rapists and murderers who are in this country illegally. Fairfax County, an individual who's in the country illegally, at one point asked to be deported. Still wasn't. Numerous. He choked a police officer once, felony. That got kicked down to misdemeanor. Sexually assaulted children. Most recently was put in jail, supposed to serve 50 days because he tried to steal a woman's dog on a jogging trail, and then he exposed himself, something that he had done to numerous children. He gets sentenced to 50 days. They let him out early, 25 days. There was a request for a detainer. In other words, immigration said, do not release him into the public. Let us know when his time is done, and we are going to come get him. And Fairfax County, it's a sanctuary area, so they let him out. And then 4 days later, he raped a woman on a jogging trail. New York City officials won't be handing over an illegal migrant there, accused of robbing a local prosecutor and performing a lewd act over to federal immigration authorities to get sanctuary status. The Rikers Custody Management Unit said it will not be honoring the detainer request for Brandon Jesus Somoza Sahayas. Immigration and Custom Enforcement confirmed to the Daily Caller News Foundation. Somoza, a Venezuelan national, who has been repeatedly arrested by police this year alone, has remained in New York Department of Corrections custody at Rikers Island since he allegedly attacked an assistant prosecutor for District Attorney Alvin Bragg several days ago. Can this not be any more perfect? Alvin Bragg, who has made a career after going after Donald Trump while consistently allowing criminals, including those in this country, out illegally, and one of them ends up attacking one of his own assistant prosecutors. Federal immigration authorities also confirmed Somoza is an illegal immigrant who entered the U.S. under the Biden-Harris administration. Well, of course. Somoza allegedly followed the 38-year-old female victim into her apartment building on November 17 around 2 a.m. and demanded cash, according to a New York Police Department statement provided to the Daily Caller News Foundation. Somoza then allegedly snatched the woman's bank card and cell phone and performed a lewd act in front of her before fleeing the scene. And now, again, you have the sanctuary city status protecting him from being turned over to ICE once the moment comes if he's let out of jail. I would really like there to be a number. How many women have to be raped? I mean, is there a number before a Democrat-led city will say, okay, we're going to stop this nonsense? How many children? Is there a number of bodies that have to pile up? When it came to their so-called border security bill that they falsely accused Trump of torpedoing, part of that was a provision saying that they would allow, it was a 2,300 or 2,500 illegals in the country every day before it added up to millions of illegals before they would start to enforce the law. So they're willing to give numbers in an instance like that. How many women and children have to be murdered, raped and murdered before you have somebody like the mayor of Denver say, okay, we'll stop protecting these people? A distinguished Detroit area pastor died after an illegal immigrant from Colombia struck him with his car while he was out on a run. Pastor Stephen Singleton's family said on a GoFundMe page for the 72-year-old pastor that he was out on his usual daily run wearing a reflective vest when he crossed the street on a crosswalk and was hit by a man who ran through a red light. The illegal had a foreign driver's license, which in Michigan is a valid form of ID. And then you had the arrest of an illegal out of Denver recently for raping a 14-year-old, while the mayor of Denver is still holding fast that he's going to protect the illegals in the country from deportation. What sort of sick people are these? Can we get beyond the Democrat and Republican at some point and just use a little common sense? I understand the instinct of people who vote Democrat and think Donald Trump is awful. You want to ignore this stuff because it shows just how, frankly, horrible the Democrat Party is. These are not good people. You are not a good people if you offer sanctuary to people who murder and rape women and children. You are not a good person, frankly. I'll go so far as to say you are a bad person. If there's a story, and these stories come out every so often, and you find out that you got some guy living with his girlfriend, and he's molesting or raping his girlfriend's 5-year-old child, and then it turns out that the mother knew about it, but they continued to give him a place to stay anyhow, what do we think about that mother? We think lock that piece of trash up. But if you're a Democrat mayor, and you have illegals in your community, in your jurisdiction, that rape 5-year-olds, they have no I mean, well, they're virtuous for giving them a place to stay. They're virtuous for saying, hey, we're going to protect all residents. Notice they don't say citizens any longer. Anytime Democrats are talking about protecting the people within their jurisdiction, they no longer use the word citizen, they use the word resident. That's because they're talking about even the psychopaths who are utilizing their community as a feeding ground for their morbid and macabre desires to murder and rape. This isn't theoretical. This isn't, well, if you give sanctuary status to criminals, then you're going to have an increase in crime. There are real people who are being raped and murdered because of these policies. I mean, there was a time when this was not partisan. There was a time where, I'm not even talking about the sanctuary status thing, but just a secure border. We all kind of agreed. Republicans agreed. Democrats agreed. There were variations on the best way to enforce it. I remember in the 90s, there was a big argument. Republicans were like, punish the illegals, and then Democrats were like, no, we have to punish those people who are employing them, and if you punish them, then there won't be jobs for the illegals, so they won't come here. Democrats have gone from, here's our way to prevent illegals from coming into the country, to, you can rape and murder. Don't worry, we got sanctuary status for you. What has happened to you people? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. We are going to have special programming on Thanksgiving, just giving you a heads up. And then Friday, we will have best of programming. And then there'll be guest host in Monday and Tuesday. I'm actually going to be off those days, and then I will be back Wednesday. But I will be here tomorrow. Just want to give you a heads up on all that. And if you miss any of the show, don't worry. We've got the on-demand section. We've got Spotify. We've got iTunes. We have all of that stuff available to you. A traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 52. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 37. For your Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 54. And on Thanksgiving, sunny and breezy with a high near 42.
Now, it isn't just illegal immigration that, or I should say, violent crimes at the hands of illegals that are the direct results of Democrat policies. Crime itself, I mean, it is an environment that is fostered by Democrat policies, just crime all around. There is a Democrat from the Bronx by the name of Richie Torres. He's a U.S. congressman. He's blasted New York leaders over the weekend for failed criminal justice reforms that enabled a homicidal rampage in broad daylight last week, resulting in the murders of 3 innocent people at the hands of a violent, mentally ill man released from custody early. Quote, the bureaucrat in the Department of Corrections who authorized the early release of Roman should be fired, he wrote in a fiery letter to Governor Kathy Hochul and New York Mayor Eric Adams, both Democrats. Quote, those who cannot be entrusted with public safety should no longer be employed by the people of New York. Well, the problem is, again, I guess they should be, because that's who the people choose. Now, you may argue that, a bureaucrat in the Department of Corrections is somebody that the government has the authority to fire. But the fact of the matter is the people who hired that, it's not as if whomever let some criminal out on the street early is way out of whack when it comes to the Democrats' approach with crime. He added that layers upon layers of government failure enabled Roman Rivera, an 8-time criminal whose most recent stint behind bars involved a transfer to the psych ward at Bellevue Hospital where he attacked a corrections officer. He blasted Hochul last week as the new Joe Biden and urged her to get out of the way if Democrats want to maintain their grip on power in the Empire State. This isn't a Kathy Hochul problem. This is a Democrat problem. This idea that somehow Kathy Hochul is, an anomaly within the Democrat Party when it comes to policies dealing with criminals and being soft on crime. It reminds me of the elections in Chicago where Beetlejuice got ousted, and you just have another Democrat put in there. And people after the election are still, things are going to really change now. We got rid of that soft on crime Beetlejuice as mayor. What are you you just replaced her with a carbon copy when it comes to the approach of dealing with crime. The obtuseness of these people. The Democrat congressman wrote on X, she may be in denial about the depth of her vulnerabilities as a Democratic nominee. A Democratic incumbent who is less popular in New York than Donald Trump is in grave danger of losing to a Republican in 2026. So what? They'll just elect another Democrat? What do you think? You're going to get some Democrat in there that's all of a sudden going to be real tough on crime? Oh, okay. Torres took aim at Hochul again this week, along with Mayor Eric Adams, writing that enough is enough. Well, no, it's not. Let's just be honest. For Democrat voters, it's never enough. I mean, again, going back to the prior segment, you have increasingly individuals who are in this country illegally commit crime after crime after crime, and then you have Democrat-run cities in which they refuse to detain the individuals for ICE, releasing them back out in the community where they go out and rape and murder. That apparently is not I do not think that there is a limit for a lot of these Democrat voters. And I do put it on them in these communities because they are the one. Why should Kathy Hochul or Eric Adams or Gavin Newsom or this mayor in Denver or any of these Democrats that embrace these policies that create these safe havens for violent criminals, why should they do things differently? They get reelected. The powers that be in the Democrat Party continue to funnel money to their campaigns. If you're doing a job and you do not get reprimanded for the way you're doing the job, instead you get rewarded for it, you continue to do the job that way. Why would any of these people change the way that they're doing things when, aside again from the donors, the people keep voting them in over and over and over again? And when they don't vote them in, again, I'll use Chicago as an example, they just put a carbon copy in that same position, which is why nothing changes. And sometimes they're even worse. I mean, the current mayor, when it comes to dealing with crime in Chicago, has so far demonstrated not only is he not better than Beetlejuice was, he's worse. I mean, all you can do at this point is tell people just get out of there. And leave it to those who want that dystopian society that they've created. Miranda Devine has a piece I want to share with you after the break, and it is written around the latest revelations, some of which I've shared with you regarding the new revelations from the Capitol police officer who murdered Ashley Babbitt in the Capitol. Shot her unarmed, no warning whatsoever. And what we've learned through an investigation is that this Capitol Hill police officer that Democrats hailed as a hero, because, he shot a Trump supporter. Surprised they don't create some sort of badge of honor for that. That he has been in trouble numerous times in the past. Couldn't even pass an FBI background, or couldn't even background check to get a shotgun. Shot in the past at someone who was fleeing, and almost every step of the way he gets promoted. Well, Miranda Devine has written a pretty concise, and it's a great piece. I wanted to read it to you coming up from the New York Post, titled Tragic Ashley Babbitt and the Buried January 6th Truth. That next, I'm Nick Reed. Before I read this piece from the Post, Tragic Ashley Babbitt and the Buried January 6th Truth, there's another story here. Los Angeles becomes sanctuary despite dozens of murderous, child-preying illegals arrested in the city this year. And, increasingly, in the numbers that they show, Los Angeles ERO has arrested 1,263 illegal immigrants in the metro area so far this year. 715 of them had criminal convictions. 26 of them pending charges or convictions for murder, homicide, and assault against children. And it goes down and, breaks it down further. And thinking people, compassionate people, human beings, say to themselves, how, what, who does this? Why? I really do believe that the Democrat Party has it's evolved into this institution that simply looks at what does our political opposition stand for. We're going to stand for the opposite. So instead of, hey, we also believe that we need to protect our citizens from criminals and enforce our border, it is, Republicans are also for wanting to secure the border. Okay, so we're going to be opposed to that. How do you think this whole transgender thing came about? Never in anyone's right mind would any elected official 20 years ago defend a boy taking showers with middle school girls because he identifies as a girl. But what occurred is at some point you have one instance of some psychologically damaged individual that not only believes he's trapped in the wrong body, he's actually a girl, but then because he's entitled, thinks, well, I should be able then to walk into the showers with girls. And because the first voice, it was like, no, clearly that's wrong. Democrats were like, oh, well, we're going to take the opposite position. Their entire identity is just, we hate them, so whatever they do, we're going to do the opposite. And that's how you end up with a Democrat Party that pushes pornography in elementary schools, that pushes, forcing girls to lose out on scholarships to boys and take showers with boys, where you have Democrats that provide sanctuary to rapists and murderers, and how you end up with over 300,000 children lost in this country to sex trafficking, and an administration that's like, well, we did our best. Because they have no moral compass other than whatever the Republican stance is, whatever the Donald Trump stance is, we're going to do the absolute opposite. And that's how they have become so absurdly dangerous in their policies. All right, I do want to go. I know it's a short segment, but we'll just take a quick traffic a break here and then share with you this piece from Miranda Devine in the New York Post regarding Ashley Babbitt. I'm Nick Reed. Miranda Devine, New York Post. So we now know that the cop who fatally shot unarmed Donald Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt, 36, during the January 6th Capitol riot was rewarded with a promotion and a $36,000 bonus. Evidently, that's the price on the head of Trump supporters, $36,000. Sort of like in the Gaza area where individuals that kill Jews while carrying out a suicide bomber, their families get a bonus from Hamas. There were no ill consequences for his rash actions that day. Instead, Captain Michael Byrd, 56, was held up as a hero of democracy, despite the fact that he had a lengthy disciplinary record that included leaving his loaded gun in a public bathroom in the Capitol Visitor Center improperly firing his gun at a car near his home while off duty, and abusing a Maryland cop who tried to stop him entering a high school football field while he was called a racist a-hole, again while off duty, according to a letter released last week by GOP-led House Administration Committee Subcommittee on Oversight. 3 entries into Byrd's internal affairs record have gone missing, wrote Subcommittee Chairman Barry Loudermilk, Republican Georgia, in a letter to Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger. Loudermilk is asking questions about Byrd and everything else about January 6th that was used so effectively to tarnish Trump and his supporters, and that provided the excuse for the Biden administration to weaponize federal law enforcement against them. The J6 riot was not an insurrection, but a protest that escalated into an out-of-control riot because then Police Chief Stephen Sund was denied intelligence about potential threats that day and denied National Guard backup that he was begging for. In the cold light of hindsight, a new Trump administration will ensure that the narrative of J6 is rewritten to reflect the truth of that tragic day instead of the lies spun by Democratic Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi January 6 committee. Sund is a crucial witness to history. Pelosi made him her scapegoat, firing him immediately, but she knew he had begged for the National Guard to assist his vastly outnumbered troops. He needed the permission of the Capitol Police Board, and Pelosi and then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who controlled the 2 sergeants at arms, who had to give him the okay. McConnell's guy deferred to Pelosi, and Pelosi's guy kept saying he had to, quote, run it up the chain to get Pelosi's approval. But the National Guard didn't arrive for hours, delayed not just by Pelosi, but by officials at the Pentagon, who had become so Trump deranged that they believed the president would repurpose the troops to declare martial law and try to hang on to power. This was the delusion that worst gripped Mark Milley, then chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the most powerful military figure in Washington. Milley was constantly going on and on to people about the threat of a coup by Trump after the 2020 election. Washington Post reporter Carol Lenning and Philip Rucker wrote in their book, I Alone Can Fix It, which paints Milley as a defender of democracy rather than an emotional weakling defying his commander-in-chief. In the days leading up to the riot, Milley told the staff that Trump suggested that the National Guard be deployed on January 6th, but it was just a, quote, excuse to invoke the Insurrection Act and call out the military. The book paints a picture of an increasingly paranoid Milley, fielding calls from unnamed friends, egging him on in his decision. Milley came to see Trump in his delusion as Hitler. Quote, this is a Reichstag moment, he told aides. The gospel of the Führer, he said. Milley seemed to get further radicalized after the June 2020 riots at Lafayette Square in front of the White House, which got so violent, Trump and his family had to be evacuated by Secret Service to an underground bunker. Trump, 2 days later, ordered that Lafayette Square be cleared so he could reassure the public by appearing at St. John's Church, which had been firebombed by the protesters the previous night. Milley, for his part, was more upset at the criticism he received for appearing in a presidential photo op in his uniform than he was about the fact that the president had to be evacuated to a bunker for his safety. During those violent riots, officers at the Capitol's Metropolitan Police Department were ordered not to assist the White House, said Sund, undoubtedly by D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, a rancid Trump hater. Sund noted that the D.C. cops were so furious having to watch bloodied Secret Service agents being taken out by ambulance while they were told to do nothing. Afterwards, Sund phoned then D.C. Police Chief Peter Newsham and asked for an assurance that if he had problems at the Capitol, the D.C. police would come and help. Although Newsham retired 5 days before the January 6th event, the D.C. police, quote, could not have helped me more, said Sund, and sent him 1,000 officers. But when it came to the National Guard, he hit a roadblock. First, it was Pelosi, then the Pentagon. After his troops had been fighting rioters for 80 minutes, Sund finally got approval from Pelosi to call in the National Guard, moments before the first window was broken. He then called General William Walker, commander of the D.C. National Guard, but Walker needed permission from Trump's acting Secretary of Defense, Chris Miller, who also suffered from Trump derangement and delusions just like Milley. It took 4 hours for the National Guard to arrive, but by then it was all over. Walker's hands had been tied by a curious memo issued by Miller 2 days earlier ordering unprecedented restrictions on the D.C. National Guard, applying to January 5th and 6th, Sun said in his book, Courage Under Fire. In his January 4th, 2021 memo entitled Employment Guidance, Miller dictated that without his personal authorization, the D.C. National Guard cannot be issued weapons, ammo, bayonets, batons, helmets, or body armor, or interact physically with any protesters, employ any riot control assets, share equipment with law enforcement agencies, employ helicopters or any other air assets, and so on. In other words, they were told to do nothing, and nothing they did. Now, because we're out of time, I'll note that there was also the mention here in the piece about the op-ed that it would turn out Liz Cheney coordinated before January 6th, in which Trump was criticized by 10 former secretaries of defense for suggesting that they may need to prepare for January 6th with the National Guard. We'll get the whole piece up so you can read it. Must-read headlines, ksgf.com. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. Hour number 3. The Union for the Democratic National Committee, DNC, have launched a GoFundMe to help former staffers hit by massive layoffs after election losses. Now, I'm not in a union, but it's my understanding that unions are supposed to sort of this is the whole point of unions, is so that their people are taken care of, not to run a GoFundMe to digitally panhandle asking other people. Have I missed what a union's supposed to do here? Corinne Jean-Pierre has asked about this. We'll play some of that audio. It's so typical. So absolutely typical. I want a great homeloan.com. If you have any home loan needs, then the Carrickers and their team, they are there for you. And listen, there are a lot of institutions that handle providing you financial services like home loans, but they don't want to spend any real meaningful time with you unless they're going to make money off you, which means that they don't want to spend a lot of time answering your questions. They want to see you when you're ready to start that loan process or start whatever that financial process is. That way they can get paid because time is money. That's not how the Carrickers view things. They see the long game, and they recognize the value in making sure that you have all the information available possible. So I mention that because I don't want you to think, if you have any questions about interest rates, or is this a good time for you to pay off your home loan, or a good time to take out another home loan? Should you wait until the inauguration? What about the Fed? All of these questions that you may have rolling around in your head, reach out to them, ask them these questions, because they will spend that time with you. And it doesn't matter. You may end up deciding, you know what, now's not the right time. That's perfectly fine. They're not there to try to reel you in, or thinking, well, I've spent 2 hours on this guy, so I've got to close this thing. That's just not the way that they do things. Those of you who have dealt with them before, you know it. And those who haven't, I'm just telling you that's the way it is. So any need, and second opinions as well. You go to your regular bank, there's here's what we can offer you. Check out iwantagreathomeloan.com. See what they can do for you as well. That's where it all starts. That's where the contact info is, as well as other information. I want a great homeloan.com, because you do. The union representing members of the Democratic National Committee launched a GoFundMe to raise money for staffers who were abruptly laid off last week, prompting backlash from those still on the DNC payroll, who have described the cuts as a betrayal of party values. Oh, this is shocking to you? Have you not been paying attention? This is a political party that has a knack of consistently harming the very people that they claim they are looking out for. Consistently. It's always, it's sadly amusing when you have people within that world who are forced to realize that because it's happening to them. It's a little hard to continue to virtue signal and live in denial about the results of your policies when you are a victim of those results. And then they're outraged all of a sudden. Oh, this is what we've been doing to other people all this time. What's different when it's me? The GoFundMe created by the DNC union seeks to raise $25,000 to assist staff impacted by the layoffs following their losses in the 2024 election. Members of the DNC staff union said on the fundraising page that the abrupt wave of layoffs had included 2/3 of DNC staffers who were let go with little notice and with no severance. What has the union been doing all this time? That's what I want to know. I mean, really. In a public statement, the union blasted DNC leadership for the layoffs, which they described as callous and short-sighted, and which they noted extended to employees who were previously told their positions at the DNC would be safe after Election Day. Now, wait a minute. You don't mean to tell me that the Democrats lied? What? Don't you love these people are just out? Well, wait a minute. They weren't telling us the truth about this. Welcome to America. DNC staff union organizer Jill Brownfield wrote on the GoFundMe page, "We're heartbroken to see our colleagues who dedicated countless hours to electing Democrats up and down the ballot depart under these circumstances, and we're furious with DNC leadership for failing to provide severance to those affected." A DNC spokesperson told Fox News Digital, "Every cycle, political organizations scale up to meet the demand, and the cycle comes to a close. It's a tough reality for our industry that we must part with talented, hardworking staff." Now, the problem they have is, according to the union, they were all told that would not happen. So somebody's lying. Officials also stressed that the DNC had met the terms of the collective bargaining agreement that was negotiated. The spokesperson adding, "While the DNC has met the terms of the union agreement negotiated by the CBA, we share the entire DNC family's frustration and continue to provide resources to all members of the team to support them in the transition." DNC union officials said the GoFundMe proceeds will directly aid staff members hit by the layoffs, including single parents and workers expecting children, and will be distributed equally to any laid-off member who opts in to receive the funds. Now, Listen, I don't know how many people we're talking about, but if their goal is $25,000, it does not sound like that's going to go far. So, the best I can tell from this story, you've got these staffers that are in this union. They're paying dues. And that's what you do. You pay dues into the union so that, these sorts of things, I guess, don't happen. Or if they do, you're protected. But best I can tell, what they have paid for is someone to set up a GoFundMe page for them. Because that's what the union's doing for them. I wonder what percentage of their paychecks they were paying the union. I think that if I were out of my paycheck, I've got the union telling me, "Hey, you need us. I mean, we are here to protect you. Without us, you could just lose your job at any moment. Without us, if you lose your job, then you're going to be high and dry. But we'll make sure that if for whatever reason your job goes away, you're going to be taken care of. We'll make sure, don't you worry about it. You just keep cutting us some of your check. Make sure that every paycheck we get some." And then that moment happens, and they're like, "Oh, well, we'll set up a GoFundMe for you." Oh, what a nice perk. If I understand correctly, it doesn't even cost anything to set up a GoFundMe page. So like, "Well, we'll take care of this for you. Don't worry." Where did this money go? All right, it's perfect that this, of course, happened within the DNC. All right, we'll get a traffic update play. Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about this question. Oh, and you're going to love this one. So it's noted in the question to Karine Jean-Pierre about Biden, how he always talks about how he's the most pro-union president ever. Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday said he's never said that about himself. Kid you not. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 52. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 37. For your Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 54. And on Thanksgiving, sunny and breezy with a high near 42.
The DNC union launched a GoFundMe to help former staffers hit by massive layoffs after election losses. Admittedly, I've never been in a union, and so I can't say from experience I know exactly how they work. It was always my understanding that it was to prevent things like this from happening. Now, I know that you can't prevent everything from happening bad, but like I don't know that you'd be taken care of or something. Assuming that there's some sort of due component here that they've been paying, and it appears as if they were just told after being promised, hey, no matter what happens this election, you'll have jobs here. They were just laid off immediately, no severance or anything. And what do they get from the union? The union is telling them, well, we'll set up a GoFundMe page for you. Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about this, and it was somewhat twofold, just about the union situation itself, that combined with the optics of Kamala Harris going on vacation in Hawaii while this is happening.
Just on unions. The president has talked so much about being the most pro-union president ever. This week, the DNC staff union put out a pretty scathing note saying that so many DNC staffers have gotten laid off, no severance, they were shocked. I'm just curious, from an optics perspective, the vice president left town to go to Hawaii on vacation. Does the president think that's appropriate when so many DNC staffers are literally wondering what they're going to do for work?
All right, let's not twist this in so many knots here. First of all, to your first part of your question, it's not the president who called himself the most pro-union president. It's other unions have called him that, and he is proud to be called the most pro-union president ever. That is something that he was given to him, and he is proud to own that. And it's not because it's a frivolous statement. It is because he has shown, he's not just spoken, but taken action, and has had the back of union members and union workers throughout his presidency. As it relates to the DNC, I would have to refer you to the DNC.
And look bad for the vice president to go to Hawaii while DNC staffers are just wondering what they're going to do for
work. The
vice
president has taken time off to go spend time with her family. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think she deserves some time to be with her family and to have some downtime. She has worked very hard over the last 4 years, and her taking a couple of days to be with her family, good for her. Good for her. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
There's a lot about all of that I really like.
I'm going to miss her.
So we've gone back to what a hard worker and how important Kamala Harris was in the White House.
I would have asked, can you name one example?
Yeah, right. Well, she was border czar. They'd go. I mean, because this is. Let's not forget. This was the buildup of Kamala Harris, how important she is, all these important jobs she has, from space to voting to the border, until she was running for president after she had the nomination bought for her. And when the results of all of this important work that she was doing were brought up, we were told, oh, the vice president really actually doesn't do that much anyway. No, she didn't have much to say in that. Oh, no. And now we're back to, she has worked so hard these past 4 years. She deserves some time with her family. Don't you understand that? And Joe Biden's never claimed he's pro-union. He's been handed that because he's the most pro-union president ever in the entire existence of the world. That's why. Joe Biden's never once patted himself on the back and claimed that he was the most pro-union president. She's going out in a blaze of glory, I guess. I mean, some might think, well, the waning days of the administration, and she'll start mailing it in. Nope, the delusional lies, she's clicking those babies out like it's day one on the job. Good for her, sticking with it. Here's an idea. How about some of these people like Oprah Winfrey and her company that got anywhere from $1 to $2 million from the Kamala Harris campaign? Maybe Oprah can add a little bit to that GoFundMe. Or Lizzo, or whomever on the listing of these celebrities that were paid hundreds of thousands into the millions of dollars. That amount of money that they blew in like 100 days, what was it, 1.9 billion, or some stupid crazy amount. $100,000 to upgrade the set that podcast she went on, the Who's Your Daddy podcast. Is that what it was called?
Call Her Daddy.
Call Her Daddy podcast. They paid that host $100,000 so she could upgrade her studio before that interview was done. Maybe some of that should go to the GoFundMe. Do you not see the landscape here? Those of you who still try to convince yourselves that the Democrat Party is the party of the working person, all of these celebrities, many of which were taking money hand over fist from this campaign, putting it in massive debt. And the shared debt between the Kamala Harris campaign and the DNC, so they're having to take these people working paycheck to paycheck, sever their jobs. They get absolutely no severance pay whatsoever, but boy, Oprah got her money. Beyonce got her money. I mean, all these just stupid, crazy, rich Democrats, hand over fist, got the money. Meanwhile, you have these paycheck to paycheck workers kicked to the curb, digitally panhandling on GoFundMe, begging for pennies. They're really taking care of it. And then Karine Jean-Pierre, how dare you question Kamala Harris? She deserves to go on a long vacation in Hawaii. How dare those peasants complain? They should be grateful that Kamala Harris worked so hard for them. This is the Hunger Game mentality that these elites have on full display. Let's go to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Bill, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks. Hey, just a quick comment about the celebrities. Since Democrats believe that government and politics is just a cash cow, why would their supporters not want to get paid for everything they do? They're there for one reason, and that is to get paid.
Well, it started, coming out towards the end of the campaign, just the reckless spending of the Harris campaign and the celebrities. This is just, I got to be honest, I was surprised that these celebrities were not just donating their time. And doing things in the way of an in-kind contribution, whether it's through the DNC or whatever outlet it is, because that's not an uncommon way for people to make donations. You'll have someone that has a particular venue that normally, and you have to report this, by the way. So if I have a venue that I rent out for $1,000 a night, and I'm going to donate it to a campaign for usage, I either have to charge them or I have to declare that as a campaign contribution valued at whatever the value would be for a normal person renting that space. And so when you have these entities like a podcaster that they write a check for $100,000 so she can update her studio, or Oprah's production getting one, and I heard there were some reports that it was actually $2 million, but you know, and then these celebrities that were getting paid all of this money, not just to perform, but to endorse her, essentially, to show up and tell people this is why you should vote for her. I was a little surprised. I just thought most of them, at least, I thought, well, some will probably take the cash if they can, but that most of them would do it because they really believed that Kamala Harris was going to be the best vision forward. And I mean, I'm thinking to myself, if I were some sort of performer and Trump asked me to perform, I would just, I would do it. Do we think Lee Greenwood was charging Trump? Maybe he was. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off the mark on this stuff. And I know that there obviously are going to be, particularly if you're a smaller business, or you're someone that you just can't really afford to make donations of the kind. Maybe you do some, but that you are going to charge. So I recognize that there are there are going to be businesses and maybe even supporters that do have to charge to some degree. But we're talking about some of the richest people in the world here, and these dollars are donations, many of which have come from people that are living paycheck to paycheck, who believe that Trump is Hitler and that he is going to destroy the world as we know it. And so they're digging through their coin purse to get out what change they can in order to prevent that from happening, and it ends up lining Oprah Winfrey's pockets. And then you have these DNC workers that were told, don't worry, you'll have a job no matter what happens with the election. And I can't help but believe part of the financial straits they're in is because of this pain of celebrities and the reckless spending, and incidentally also paying journalists. Before Kamala Harris sat down and gave Al Sharpton an interview, his organization got, I think, $250,000. There were other outlets that were given money before Kamala Harris sat down with them. And so you see all that happening. And then the workers that really don't have much money at all, they're probably housed up in an apartment, 3 or 4 to an apartment, because that's all that they can, afford. And they're, just living paycheck to paycheck. And they're the ones that are told, sorry. And then they paid union dues, and the union's like, well, we'll set up a GoFundMe for you, but that's about all we can do. I mean, you want to talk about getting screwed over by your party? And then the people who get the cash, who get the money, are the Oprah Winfreys and the Beyoncés of the world. I mean, it's just the perfect snapshot of what the Democrat Party really, truly, genuinely is. Bill, thanks. I appreciate the call. Got a text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. I'm a former union member and prior union business owner. It is legal extortion. Well, what are you talking about? According to the Democrats, it's what helps keep... Yeah, the unions are supposed to protect the people who lost their jobs at the DNC from people like Kamala Harris and the DNC and what they've done. That's what, at my understanding, to some degree, that's what the whole point of a union is to protect workers from this sort of behavior. And the fact that I just can't get over, well, we'll set up a GoFundMe for you. That'll be that's what you've paid dues for all this time.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 52. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 37. For your Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 54. And on Thanksgiving Day, sunny and breezy with a high near 42. And real quick, I want to tell you about my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. It's Christmas decorating time, and if you are a person that likes to go all out, decorate all around the outside of your home, if you're putting lights up on your roof and your gutters, and if you notice some repairs that need to be addressed, I do want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Whether you have dings and dents from hail, loose shingles, gutter issues, whatever the case is, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they can get you all taken care of. Now, the Pyramid team, they do free roof inspections. They offer discounts for our military and our first responders on new roof installs, and they also work through that insurance process without making you sign anything. They get that doing a roof repair or maybe a replacement, it's not necessarily a fun purchase, so they really do try to make that process as simple and easy as possible. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out at your home, go ahead and give Josh a call today. And as always, you can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Trump announced planned tariffs, China, Mexico, Canada. Washington Examiner piece here. He announced planned tariffs on goods from those countries over specifically drug trafficking. Trump targeting Mexico, Canada for their failure to halt illegal immigration and drug trafficking in a Truth Social post, while slamming China for failing to properly crack down on drug production and trafficking in another. Quote, right now, a caravan coming from Mexico, composed of thousands of people, seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border, Trump noted. On January 20th is one of my first many executive orders. I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States. And its ridiculous open borders, he continues. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl and all illegal aliens, stop this invasion of our country. The president-elect said that the two countries have the absolute right and power to easily stop illegal migration and drugs trafficking into the U.S., saying we hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price. In another post, he chastised China for failing to pull through on their end of the bargain regarding fentanyl production and trafficking. Quote, representatives of China told me that they would institute their maximum penalty, that of death, for any drug dealers caught doing this, but unfortunately they never followed through, and drugs are pouring into the country, mostly through Mexico, at levels never seen before. Until such time as they stop, we will be charging China an additional 10% tariff above any additional tariffs on all of their many products coming into the United States of America. Now, this is Trump doing what Trump does successfully. And that is, he looks at, we'll say opposition in this capacity. I mean, not that Canada, we're not enemies, but outside parties with varying interest in which we have relations. And he identifies what is important to them. And how can that be used in order to compel them to behave in a manner that is beneficial to the United States? It's the art of the deal. That's the formula. This is the formula that Trump uses. This is not something that you're taught in academia. This is not something that all of the nicely framed degrees and awards gets you. This is what I call street smart. Reading other people. Donald Trump recognizes that China needs to sell its products in the United States. Mexico needs to sell products that are manufactured into the United States. Canada these are revenue sources. And so what does Trump do? That is something, he looks at, okay, what do they want that we can withhold from them? And then he says, guess what we're going to do? We're going to take away something that you hold very valuable until you comply with what we hold to be very valuable, and that is less people dying of fentanyl poisoning. The idea here being that the tariffs, obviously, you're going to have any of these manufacturers, any of these companies that rely on importing into the United States are going to be picking up their phone. They're going to be calling Trudeau. They're going to be calling the president of Mexico, whatever her name is. They're going to be calling Xi. They're going to be calling these and saying, you'd better fix this problem. Because if not, we're going to have some real trouble here. This is going to cause the price of our product to go up to a point that Americans will find it worthwhile to just purchase the products from in the United States, because we will no longer be able to undercut the manufacturers in the United States, or they just won't buy our products at all. Not all products are necessary. Some are luxury items that people purchase because, we've got the money to purchase it. It's something I'd like, but ultimately they don't have to. And that is going to put real pressure on them. And Trump understands this. That's why he's done this before. And he did it when it came to securing the border, specifically with Mexico. It wasn't over drugs as much as illegals. That's when the real border enforcement began during the Trump administration the first time around. He threatened to put tariffs on Mexico unless they did something to help secure the border. Within 24 hours, the president of Mexico was on the phone with the White House saying, "What do you want me to do?" Maybe it was 48 hours. I mean, it was a hilariously quick turnaround. And immediately, Mexico began using its military to stop illegals from coming up through their southern border, thereby making it up to our southern border. They put a stop to it. For all the talk and the focus of a wall and the effectiveness of a wall, which is something that is one of the many tools that can be used to make it more difficult for people to come into this country illegally, the most significant thing Trump did was threaten to use those tariffs against Mexico if they did not stop facilitating illegal immigrants into the country. And they weren't just the problem wasn't Mexico releasing Mexicans into the United States. It was the fact that they were helping transport people that were coming south of their border up through Mexico because they didn't want them there. And Trump had in place that policy, the stay in Mexico policy, where if you were applying for asylum, you had to do it from Mexico. You couldn't come into the United States and do it. That was one of the many executive order changes that Biden made, saying you don't have to, if you're from El Salvador, you're from Guatemala, you do not any longer have to wait in Mexico for your asylum to be approved. Come into the United States, roam around here while you wait for it to be approved. And Trump, probably the single most effective thing he did in order to secure the border, was compelled Mexico, through the threat of tariffs, to help us enforce the border. And by gosh, they did it. And I remember Nancy Pelosi, her response to it was, yes, it worked, but that's not how you're supposed to deal with partners. Which is the typical elitist Washington, D.C. response. It doesn't matter whether it works or not. It's how you do it. It's what it looks like. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. You don't use that sort of influence. You don't use those threats in order to get our neighbors to comply. Well, you do if you want it to work. This isn't a new approach. Now, does this mean it's going to work? Will it work 100% effectively? Will it work 50%? We don't know. This is also something that we have to understand, and Trump knows it, is that you utilize these tools, and it doesn't mean they're going to work every time, but you have to follow through on them. That's the other thing. Even if it doesn't work, let's say China's like, whatever, we're going to continue to do this anyhow, and then we have these 25% tariffs slapped on some products, which increases the prices in some areas, some of those products here in the United States, and then we get nothing out of it. Well, we get credibility out of it. Because if you don't follow through and keep the tariffs in place anyhow, then that sends a message to countries that, well, We just won't comply, and then they'll drop the tariffs. So we've got to recognize that in instances like this, in which perhaps you do not get compliance, they play chicken, you cannot then back down because then it loses its power. We've been through this before, and it did not take long at all for it to be beneficial in a very meaningful way. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Bradford Light, one of the offerings from Kansas Territory Brewing Company you can find at area Macadoodles and Price Cutters, thanks to Show Me Beverage, tailored for the hardworking men and women who appreciate the reliable, easy drinking experience. Be great while you're frying that turkey. ABV 3.8%, crafted with precision and care. The crisp, refreshing taste that satisfies without overwhelming. That's Bradford Light. Again, Macadoodles and area Price Cutters. Regarding the DNC going back on their word to keep all staffers on, even if Kamala Harris lost the election, and then with no severance whatsoever, cutting their jobs. You can imagine they're upset, particularly given that their union's response is, well, we'll set up a GoFundMe page for you. And the context of the fact that the campaign and the DNC, hand over fist, were giving money to celebrities. They walked away with their pockets full. A Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line message. Also, the Kamala campaign paid social media influencers, as I remember through the show. I'm not talking about the Call Your Daddy girl, but a number of influencers to spread the propaganda. Yes, this is true. There were offers to numerous social influencers. I think it was like $10,000 a pop if they came to the Democratic National Convention, and that included hotel stay. Even prior to that, there were a number of social media influencers who had gone on social media revealing that they had been contacted. They were showing the emails that they were receiving from the Kamala Harris campaign, offering them money to pretend that they liked Kamala Harris. It's very wise use of dollars. Very wise. And it all paid off. I suppose if she won, at least they could argue, hey, it worked. But that's not how it panned out. Gavin Newsom threatens intervention if Trump kills Biden $7.5K EV tax credit. Now, there's a lot about this story. One, I think it's a misleading clickbait headline. Fox News has gotten very bad about that, in my opinion, over the past couple of years. Gavin Newsom's not really threatening anything other than saying, if Trump does this, then I'll put one in on a state level. Okay, fine. Gavin Newsom planning on pushing back against President-elect Donald Trump's policies derailing the current administration's green energy push. Biden implemented a tax credit of up to $7,500 to incentivize the purchase of greener vehicles, which are not any more greener than gasoline vehicles. But Trump is reportedly planning to axe the tax credit when he assumes office. Sources with knowledge of the matter told Reuters. Newsom, in a statement Monday, revealed he will offer the same EV rebate for Californians in the case that Trump gets rid of the credit. Well, here's my question. If you can, quote, afford that, why not do it now anyway? Everything's already more expensive in California, so if there is any grouping of citizens that could use an additional bit of help, it would be people in California. Plus, if you really truly believe that you're doing something so virtuous as saving the planet, why would you withhold that tax credit from the people of California unless Trump gets rid of the national one? It seems to me as if you'd want that to be in place now. Newsom said in a statement, consumers continue to prove the skeptics wrong. Zero-emission vehicles are here to stay. Well, if they were here to stay, you wouldn't have to bribe them with tax credits. And they are not zero-emission vehicles. There may not be a tailpipe with emissions coming from the tailpipe, but they are certainly the furthest thing from zero emission. They are not environmentally safe. And unless you drive them for a very, very long period of time, they end up being even less or more damaging to the environment than the average gas-powered vehicle is. Now, this also, Gavin Newsom, is a presidential candidate wannabe for the political party that claims it's against corporate welfare. I mean, if you're bribing people to purchase by having taxpayers essentially subsidize through tax credits the purchasing of vehicles from some massive corporation, how is that not considered corporate welfare? You are using tax dollars to incentivize people to buy their product. I thought that, is this not in defiance of everything the Democrat Party claims it supports? They run around talking about how we really need to stick it to corporations, how we need to raise taxes on corporations, how we need to cut out corporate welfare. Yet here Gavin Newsom's out there saying, hey, we're going to use taxpayer dollars to incentivize you to buy their product, further lining their pockets. That seems sort of like corporate welfare to me. But as usual, what Democrats would call corporate welfare in order to demonize Republicans, when they do it, it is virtuous. Can you tell on a GoFundMe when it was set up? Oh, 6 days ago. Now, 6 days ago, the DNC union set up a GoFundMe page in order to try and make a little less painful the financial situation that the Democratic National Committee is putting its employees in. No severance whatsoever. So the union, evidently the reason they've been getting dues all this time is to set up a GoFundMe page, which doesn't cost anything to do.
How much have they raised?
$16,431 in 6 days. Where are all of you compassionate Democrats? I swear, if this was a one-eyed puppy that got thrown off a bridge, it'd be up over $1 million by now. Not that they wouldn't deserve it. Only 16,000.
What does the description say? I'm just curious.
Last week, 2/3 of DNC staff was laid off with little notice and no severance. We are heartbroken to see our colleagues who dedicated countless hours to electing Democrats up and down the ballot depart under these circumstances, and we're furious with DNC leadership for failing to provide severance to those affected. Now, they're not going to quit in protest. As such, we are creating a relief fund which will directly aid staff members, including single parents and workers expecting children, Impacted by the recent layoffs, the funds raised will be distributed equally to any laid-off member who opts in to receive funds. We hope these funds can soften the economic blow of those impacted. So in 6 days, they've raised over just $16,000. What, Oprah can't throw a donation in there? Again, her pockets were lined by all of this money. Al Sharpton, he got a big fat check before Kamala Harris sat down and interviewed him. All of these celebrities, and you're telling me in almost a week's time they cannot get over 16 or over they can't hit $17,000. The goal's only 25,000, which seemed to me like a small number, but I don't know. Someone had texted in Trump should donate. Would that not be perfect?
That would be awesome.
Donate $100,000 and just be like, it's not right what happened to you. Political differences aside, it is not right for people who dedicate their time, who have been promised you will have a job. This is what the union has said, that they were all promised that your jobs will remain intact after this election, even if Kamala Harris loses. And I would just love to see Trump donate $100,000. Put them way over the 25,000 mark, $100,000, and say, hey, listen, this just isn't right. Political differences aside, we're all Americans, and no Americans should be told that they should feel secure in their job, regardless of the circumstances, and have it taken away with absolutely no severance. And no American should pay dues into a union to have not only no protection whatsoever, but once you lose the job without warning, the union does not provide you any help outside of setting up a GoFundMe page and have that donation. I really hope that Trump makes that donation. Sure, somebody's got to bring it up to him. All right, everyone. Tomorrow will be Thursday is Thanksgiving, and so we'll have special programming on that day, and then best of on Friday. Tomorrow we'll be back in studio with you once again. In the meantime, Glenn Beck is coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.